My sister-in-law invited me on a family vacation, then played a cruel prank that triggered my trauma, but what I did next left her shocked. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I've been with my husband, Aaron, also 27, for 3 years. We've known each other for 6 years. Aaron has an older sister, Sophie, who caused this entire commotion in the family, which I'm going to talk about. 3 weeks ago, Sophie asked me if I'd be willing to accompany her on an all-women family holiday to Spain with her, my mother-in-law, and my husband's cousin, Nadia, who is also 27. Nadia and Aaron are much closer than he and Sophie, despite being first cousins rather than biological siblings, because they were in the same grade and went to the same high school. As a result, I'm much closer to Nadia as well. Initially, I wasn't inclined to go on a family vacation because I didn't think it would be fun with Sophie and my mother-in-law. However, Nadia and I had a chat, and she told me she wanted a break, so she was willing to go and wanted me to come along too. She convinced me, and I agreed to go on the trip. Sophie was sponsoring the flight tickets and the hotel stay, which wasn't a problem for her because she's extremely wealthy, thanks to her husband, a neurosurgeon. She runs an event management company, but everyone knows the company pretty much runs itself. She just doesn't want to come off as a socialite who doesn't work. She has a degree in literature but has never used it and believes college was a total waste of time for her, except for meeting her husband through a friend at a party. Aaron has told me that Sophie has been spoiled rotten by her parents since childhood, and whatever she wanted, she got. This behavior has extended into adulthood, and even now, she thinks sulking, pouting, and giving the silent treatment are enough to manipulate people into doing what she wants. It doesn't help that her husband and parents still encourage such infantile behavior. However, Aaron, Nadia, and I know when to call her out, so she doesn't try to behave the same way with us. If I'm being honest, I've never particularly liked Sophie, but since she's never been outright mean to me, I've put up with her for the sake of the family. Anyway, I agreed to go on the trip with her. 3 days ago, we were finally about to leave. The airport is far from my house, so I left early and ended up arriving about half an hour early. I was bored while waiting for the rest of the party to arrive, so I decided to scroll through my phone. That morning, unfortunately, my phone's vibration motor stopped working, so it wasn't buzzing whenever I received a notification, as it usually does. I didn't have time to repair it that day, so I decided I'd do it after returning from the holiday. It was purely by luck that I was on my phone when I received a message from Sophie. She sent me a screenshot of a text she'd received from an unknown number. The conversation included an image followed by a text. Once I downloaded it, I opened the image to check its contents because it felt bizarre that Sophie was sending me a screenshot of someone else's conversation. As soon as I did, my blood froze. The picture had been taken right outside my house by someone holding a pair of scissors in their left hand. Within seconds, I received another message from the same number. Tell your darling brother's wife that I'm back. Sophie followed up the screenshot by saying she'd received this text from an unknown number a couple of minutes ago and was terrified because she thought Aaron was in danger. That was all I needed to go into panic mode because I have a history of being stalked, which was the single most terrifying phase of my life. Back in college, I had a stalker who would randomly take pictures of me from behind and send them to me throughout the day. He wouldn't text me on my number but used dummy social media accounts to contact me. He'd ask me to meet him at certain spots, but he'd never show up. I wouldn't go unarmed, and I was trained in jiu-jitsu, but even then, I felt very afraid. This went on for 2 whole months, and I didn't tell anyone because I was scared of what he might do if I did. Initially, I tried to get him to stop, but he texted me, saying that if I breathed a word of this to anyone, I'd be in big trouble. He even sent me a similar picture from right outside my parents' house, scissors and all, to threaten me. I was terrified, so I didn't tell anyone and silently prayed for my safety whenever I had to attend classes. After the first few weeks, I stopped leaving my dorm room for anything but classes and food. Eventually, I refused to leave my room at all because I kept receiving pictures of myself so frequently. It was then that my roommate realized something was wrong and forced me to tell her. After that, we went to the police to report it. Within a few days, an arrest was made. Ironically, it was a guy from the computer engineering department, a senior with a history of creeping out or harassing girls on campus. Unfortunately, he'd taken a liking to me and started stalking me. Because he specialized in cyber safety, he was able to find out a lot about me from my public social media accounts. He was also stalking another girl who hadn't reported it for the same reasons as me. Once he was caught, he was kicked out of college, and that was the end of him terrorizing me and other women. From what I heard, his parents took him back after a couple of days, and he returned to his home country. It's been several years since then, and I had almost forgotten about him. But as soon as I saw that image, all the terror came rushing back. I instantly called Sophie and told her to get to my house as soon as possible. Luckily, I forgot to mention that I'd already called the cops because I was more concerned about warning Aaron. I got a cab within minutes and started desperately trying to call my husband, knowing he was still asleep. It was 8 in the morning, and Aaron tends to sleep late on weekends, so I knew it wouldn't be easy to get through to him. Luckily, he answered my first call, sounding drowsy. I told him to arm himself with something heavy, lock himself in the bedroom, and block the door. He was confused, but as soon as I mentioned the picture, he understood and did as I told him. I stayed on the call with him during the 45-minute cab ride home, even as the cops arrived and inspected the house. I didn't check my phone in the meantime, and since the vibration feature was gone, I wasn't getting physical reminders of notifications. By the time I reached home, the police inspection was almost over, and they hadn't found anyone suspicious in the vicinity. I was having a full-blown panic attack and needed several minutes and half a bottle of water to calm down. The cops told me they'd run the phone number through the system, and the only name that came up was Fu Wilson. That wasn't my stalker's name, but a fake name for his phone number was entirely feasible. By then, I'd forgotten about Sophie and hadn't checked my phone in a while because I was so relieved to see Aaron was safe. The cops informed me they'd sent 2 officers to track the person after the cybercrime department traced the sender, and they were bringing them to the police station. Aaron and I headed to the nearest police station. Within a few minutes of our arrival, Sophie was dragged in by 2 cops, sobbing violently. I think most people can guess what happened by now. Yes, it's exactly what you think. For whatever reason, Sophie thought it would be a good idea to pull a prank on me that morning to mess with me before our trip. She'd met a friend of mine from college for work a couple of days earlier, and I came up while they discussed families. Once they discovered the connection, my old college friend told her about my stalker, which had made me somewhat infamous on campus. I'm not bragging, but after the stalker incident, my popularity among students and teachers skyrocketed because everyone loves a good scandal. I never thought it was fun to be pointed at and whispered about, but people remembered, and I guess they're still talking about it. After learning about my past stalker, Sophie decided to prank me on the morning of our flight, thinking it would be fun. She used a phone number she'd acquired a couple of days earlier under a fake name for this purpose. She texted herself an image she'd taken a few days ago in front of our house, holding scissors with an outstretched arm. Now that I paid attention to the hand in the photo, I could tell it wasn't a man's hand at all, but she'd removed her nail polish, so it was hard to tell while I was panic-stricken. The fear messed with my mind, and I missed important hints that this was a prank. But at the end of the day, it didn't matter. It was a traumatic experience for me in college, and the thought of going through it again, especially with Aaron's safety at risk, terrified me. It wasn't fun at all and ended with an embarrassing visit to the police station, where Sophie was let off with a warning. Aaron and I wasted our time and energy worrying about my stalker's return when there was nothing to worry about. I was beyond angry when I left the station and let her have it. I must have screamed at her for more than 15 minutes, and by the time I was done, she was bawling again, but I didn't care. She tried to make a mockery of something that was a traumatic and scary experience for me, and her stupidity landed us in an embarrassing situation. She could cry all she wanted, but I wasn't going to feel an iota of sympathy for her. Aaron and I drove home that day, and on the ride back, I told Nadia all about what happened. Even she canceled the trip because, let's be real, nobody wants to hang out with someone like Sophie after such stupidity. That entire day, I did nothing but try to calm my nerves because it had been a crazy morning, and I still hadn't gotten over the stalker scare. The threat felt very real at the time, and even after finding out it wasn't, it was difficult to shake off the fear because it had been the darkest time for me in college. I'll admit I was still spooked by it. That day, I didn't talk to anyone except Aaron and a little to Nadia. I didn't get notifications either because I turned my phone off for the day. I'd had enough. 2 days ago, I found out that my mother-in-law and Sophie had filled my inbox with messages about how I had overreacted to a silly little prank and that it was cruel of me to tell Nadia to back out of the vacation. I hadn't told Nadia not to go, I just told her what Sophie had done. The decision not to go was hers alone, and I had no part in it. Apparently, Nadia and Aaron had turned everyone against Sophie, and now nobody in the family wanted to speak to her after what she did, including my father-in-law, her dad. My mother-in-law and Sophie think I'm behind this, but I hadn't told anyone about what happened. I couldn't have because I didn't use my phone that day. It was Nadia and Aaron who informed the other cousins and younger family members, who are now cutting Sophie off. They think I owe Sophie an apology because what she did was just a harmless prank, but what's happening to her is real and hurtful. She's being cut off by her own family, making her the victim. I spoke to Aaron after reading their texts, and he told me there's no reason to feel sorry for her. Neither he nor Nadia feel sorry for telling everyone else about this. What she did to me was undoubtedly cruel, not just a harmless prank. It would have been harmless if it hadn't triggered my past trauma to the point of paralyzing me with anxiety for an entire day. I agree because it wasn't harmless at all. I was paralyzed with anxiety for a whole day because of what she did, so she deserved every bit of this. Plus, she didn't even apologize and just kept crying, so I don't know why she expected me to feel sorry for her when she didn't feel sorry for me. I think that's hypocritical of her, but I don't expect any less. After reading the texts and speaking to Erin, I was going to ignore her because I had no intention of wasting my time trying to reason with her. But she kept texting me repeatedly, clearly trying to make me feel guilty. I knew she believed she could manipulate me into apologizing and getting the family back on good terms with her. It got on my nerves, and in a moment of frustration, I responded. I texted her back, saying I was glad she'd chosen to play such an insensitive and cruel prank because it revealed what an awful person she was to everyone, and she only had herself to thank for her situation. I also told her I had nothing to do with the relatives cutting her off, but I wished I did because then I'd have the satisfaction of knowing I'd helped clean up the trash from the family. I ended the message by saying she was as much of a pig on the inside as she was on the outside, referring to her being slightly chubby. I'm not someone who judges people by their bodies because I've been bullied for my own body in the past for being excessively skinny. But here, I wanted Sophie to feel bad. I knew she was insecure about her weight, so I hit her where it would hurt. I don't know if I was too hard on her, but I felt good after sending that message. I tried hard to keep my opinions to myself and my temper under control, but she kept pushing until I lost it. I called her trashy because that's how I felt about her after the prank. I used to tolerate her despite her spoiled and insensitive behavior, but this was beyond my tolerance. I set my phone down after firing off that heated text to Sophie, hoping to clear my mind by diving into a movie. I needed a break from the emotional whirlwind that had been brewing inside me. 3 hours later, I glanced at my phone, and there it was, a reply from Sophie. Her message caught me off guard. She claimed she'd always seen me as a close friend and thought I'd brush off her small mistake without her needing to grovel for forgiveness. According to her, her regret was implied, and I should have picked up on that. Her words felt like a puzzle I couldn't quite piece together, but it seemed to make perfect sense to her. She went on to say that if I was going to be so harsh, I shouldn't have bothered replying at all. Instead, she accused me of deliberately being cruel, going out of my way to make her feel awful. She even said that by choosing to respond with venom, I was just as low as she was. I'll be honest, Sophie's not someone I particularly care for, but her message made me pause. Maybe she had a point. Maybe I went too far with what I said. My anger had been building for a while, fueled by her actions and her refusal to take responsibility. Instead of owning up to her mistake, she kept twisting things, trying to pin the blame on me. It felt like gaslighting, like she was trying to convince me I was the one in the wrong. That pushed me over the edge, and I lashed out in a way I'm not proud of. The one thing I truly regret is making a jab at her weight. I know how much comments like that can sting, having been on the receiving end myself. It's a sore spot, and I shouldn't have gone there, no matter how upset I was. That said, I don't think Sophie has any right to demand an apology from me after what she did. If she'd just been honest and admitted her fault, we wouldn't be in this mess. Her prank wasn't just thoughtless, it was cruel, poking at a wound from my past that she knew would hurt. I was reeling from the betrayal, and her attempts to manipulate the situation only made it worse. My husband, Aaron, thinks I shouldn't apologize at all. He believes Sophie got what was coming to her. She hurt me first, and then kept trying to play the victim, twisting the narrative to make me look like the bad guy. He doesn't think I should feel an ounce of sympathy for her. On the other hand, my friend Nadia feels I might have been too harsh. She acknowledges Sophie's wrongdoing but thinks my response crossed a line. I'm torn. I don't want to stoop to Sophie's level just to get even, but I also don't want to let her off the hook for what she did. Aaron's my rock, but he's not always great at navigating emotional situations like this. His perspective is straightforward, call it like it is and move on. Nadia, though, tends to lean into her emotions, sometimes too much, which can cloud her judgment. What I need is an outside perspective, someone who can look at this mess objectively and tell me if I'm in the wrong. So, Reddit, I'm turning to you. Am I the asshole for calling my heavy sister-in-law a pig to hit at her insecurities after she pulled a prank that mocked my past trauma? After reading through the comments on my original post, I took some time to reflect. Your perspectives helped me see things a bit more clearly, and I appreciate the honesty, even when it was tough to hear. In the end, I couldn't shake the guilt over one specific part of our argument, the comment I made about Sophie's weight. I know how much it hurts to be attacked for something so personal, especially when it's out of your control. I've been there, and I didn't want to be the kind of person who inflicts that kind of pain. So, I swallowed my pride and sent Sophie an apology text specifically for the pig comment. I made it clear I wasn't sorry for the rest of what I said. She still needed to own up to her actions, but I couldn't live with myself knowing I'd stooped to body shaming. I sent the text about 5 minutes ago, and she hasn't read it yet. I'm hoping she'll see it and accept it, but even if she doesn't, I know I did the right thing. Apologizing for that one comment was about clearing my conscience, not letting her off the hook entirely. I feel lighter for it, like I've reclaimed a piece of my integrity. Whether she responds or not, I've done my part, and the ball's in her court now. What's been harder to navigate is the involvement of my mother-in-law. She wasn't even part of this conflict, yet she jumped in to defend Sophie. Her texts were frustratingly inconsistent. She'd acknowledge that Sophie messed up but then pivot to why I should be the bigger person. Yes, Sophie was wrong, but... Or I get why you're upset, so... It's like she expects me to apologize just to smooth things over, without holding Sophie accountable. It doesn't add up. If the roles were reversed and I'd pulled a stunt like Sophie's, I'm certain she wouldn't be so quick to defend me. Her bias is obvious, and it's left a sour taste in my mouth. For now, I'm not engaging with her. She's not part of this, and I don't owe her an explanation. Aaron's reaction to my apology was mixed. He's not thrilled I reached out to Sophie, but he gets why I did it. He called me a good human for trying to make things right, even though he still thinks Sophie's a brat who doesn't deserve my kindness. Nadia, on the other hand, was over the moon about my decision. She said she's proud of me for taking the high road, even if it was just for that one comment. I guess I'm okay with how things turned out, but I'm still processing it all. Looking back, this whole situation has been a roller coaster of emotions. Sophie's prank wasn't just a harmless joke, it cut deep, hitting a nerve tied to a trauma I've worked hard to move past. Her refusal to take responsibility only made it worse, and I let my anger get the better of me. I'm not proud of how I handled it, but I'm also not willing to let her paint herself as the victim. Her gaslighting pushed me to a point where I felt cornered, and I lashed out in a way that didn't reflect who I want to be. The weight comment was a low blow, and I knew it the moment I sent it. That's why I apologized, not because she demanded it, but because I needed to for myself. Still, I can't help but feel frustrated by the dynamics at play. Sophie's manipulation, my mother-in-law's meddling, and the conflicting advice from Aaron and Nadia have left me questioning my next steps. I don't want to keep this feud going, but I also don't want to pretend everything's fine. Sophie's actions had consequences, and while I regret one part of my response, I stand by the rest. She needs to understand that her prank wasn't okay, and no amount of deflection can change that. I'm grateful for Aaron and Nadia, even if they see things differently. Aaron's protective nature gives me strength, but his black and white view doesn't always leave room for nuance. Nadia's empathy keeps me grounded, but her tendency to prioritize feelings over accountability can be overwhelming. I'm trying to find a balance between their perspectives while staying true to myself. That's why I'm here, asking for your input. I want to handle this in a way that doesn't compromise my values or let Sophie's behavior slide. So, Reddit, what do you think? Was I wrong for how I responded to Sophie's prank? Should I have apologized at all, or was I justified in calling her out? And how do I deal with my mother-in-law's interference without escalating things further? I'm ready to hear your thoughts, even if they're tough to swallow. Thanks for helping me navigate this mess. Sophie's response to my apology came hours after I sent it, landing in my inbox about 30 minutes ago. Her message was a carefully crafted blend of acceptance and subtle venom. She brushed off my apology, claiming it was fine but adding that she never expected much from me anyway. With a tone dripping in passive aggression, she made it clear we were never friends, aren't now, and certainly won't be moving forward. She did, however, offer a half-hearted apology for her cruel prank, admitting she hadn't anticipated the devastating fallout it would cause. She claimed that had she known the depth of the pain her actions would inflict, she would have refrained. In my view, she shouldn't have done it at all, trauma or no trauma, it was tasteless and disrespectful. Still, her apology, however insincere, was something. It wasn't the heartfelt reconciliation I might have hoped for, but it was enough to ease my guilt over my sharp words. I can now close this chapter without dwelling on what I said. Sophie is officially out of our lives, and that's the silver lining in this messy ordeal. Last week, Nadia's pregnancy announcement sparked a joyous celebration, a vibrant gathering filled with love and excitement. Everyone was there, except Sophie, who'd been deliberately left off the guest list. She's been a ghost lately, having deactivated her social media accounts and gone radio silent. Aaron checked in with his dad, who confirmed she was fine, just stepping back from the social scene to recalibrate. But true to form, Sophie couldn't resist inserting herself into the narrative. At the height of Nadia's party, she sent a text laced with her signature passive-aggressive flair, congratulating Nadia on her pregnancy while slyly sidestepping the fact that she wasn't invited. She wished Nadia well on her beautiful journey and tossed in some sanctimonious remarks about wishing she could have been there to celebrate with us. She even had the audacity to claim prior commitments kept her away, as if we'd extended an invitation she declined. Her message didn't stop there. Sophie went on to say she would have loved to reconnect with me, Aaron, and the rest of the family, but she's learned to prioritize herself and avoid negative energies, a not-so-subtle jab at us, painting us as the toxic ones. It was classic Sophie, a mix of self-righteous posturing and thinly veiled resentment. We couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. Her attempt to make herself the center of attention fell flat. We didn't let her text become the party's talking point. Instead, we kept it between us, laughing at how desperately she craved relevance while refusing to own up to her actions properly. We'd hoped her social media hiatus might have sparked some self-reflection, maybe even a hint of personal growth. But no, Sophie remains Sophie, unchanged and unapologetic. Her message was a fleeting source of amusement, a reminder of why we've moved on. Here's to a future free of her drama, with Nadia's new chapter bringing us all closer together.